أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the first Chains of Narration podcast, doing it live on Zoom and Facebook and YouTube. Alhamdulillah, I'm very excited to have here with me longtime friend, as Shaykh Sa'ad has appropriately changed his name to here. He beat me to the punch there, alhamdulillah. Shaykh Sa'ad Quadri. I want to thank him, first of all, for joining the podcast. And alhamdulillah, we're going to be talking about today how to kind of make the best of Eid during this COVID-19 situation, alhamdulillah. And one of the things that we'll do before that, though, is I want to kind of have Shaykh Sa'ad take a few minutes, which is kind of customary on our podcast, is kind of give a brief background of, where he's from, where he grew up, what kind of inspired him to study, and then we can go into the topic, inshallah, if that's all right with you, Shaykh Sa'ad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wahda wa salatu wa salam ala man la nabiyya ba'da amma ba'd. I'm really happy finally to fulfill a promise I made to you a while back that we would do this at some time, although we had aimed for audio at that point. My name is Sa'ad Quadri. I'm from the Chicagoland area initially. I currently live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I grew up, born and raised in Chicago area, pretty much like most children of immigrant families did. In particular, what that meant was I went to Sunday school, and I had a parent who was involved in the Sunday school system there and the weekend school system, although he was heavily involved. My siblings and I, we went there. That's where we gained our primary sources of Islamic knowledge, and our home environment supported that. And then I think around 14 years old, when Sheikh Hamza Yusuf came on the scene at ISNA, those conventions, May S13, I had started going to some minute conferences, but he really inspired me to seek knowledge. I was always enamored by just his courage and fearlessness, and just the depth of knowledge that he had. And so that really began this yearning of studying for me. I had a lot of friends by my sophomore year who went to Islamic schools and then went to madrasa to memorize Quran. So at the end of my junior year, I opted out of senior year. I had enough credits to graduate. So I just left my senior year to go to madrasa, and I was in madrasa for about 3 years, primarily memorizing Quran, but also studying Arabic and studying introductory fiqh and introductory hadith. And by that I mean Nur al-Idah and Zal Talibin, and I think fiqh al-Muyassar as well. And so that sort of started me on this path. My parents wanted me to go back to school. They had long had this desire that I would become a lawyer. We actually made an agreement in '98 that if they let me go to Syria to study, then I'll come back and I'll be a lawyer. And they agreed, and I agreed, but then it just didn't work out. I was able to go study there. And so I didn't get the opportunity to go to Syria, but then I didn't have to become a lawyer. So in some way, nothing against lawyers. It just wasn't my thing. I mean, lawyers are fine. I have no problem with lawyers. Although I wish I had the chance to study, because my wife, who did study in Syria, told me about a lot of how it was back then. We had actually made intention to go a few years back, but never, the climate's never changed to allow that. May Allah make it easy for them and take them out of this disaster that's there right now.
I mean,
after that, for the next 10, 15 years, I was studying part-time with different scholars through the Sacred Learning Program, which was initially Madrasa program under the tutelage of Sheikh Hussein Abdul Sattar, who's the head of the Sacred Learning Program in the masjid there. There was also, I would study privately with different scholars over the phone or in person. And then eventually, in 2004, I was supposed to go to Pakistan to study, but that didn't happen. I couldn't get a visa there because I'm ethnically Indian, or at least my most immediate ethnic origins are Indian. And then in 2008, I was supposed to go to South Africa, and that didn't work out. Then finally, in 2012, I was supposed to go to South Africa, and again, that didn't work out. I needed to finish my master's. I was only a year away from finishing. And so then 2013, in April, we changed our minds from going to South Africa to Zambia. And that's where I ended up going for my final 2 years of my formal studies. At that point, studies never end. My wife was able to complete her studies as well. And then that's it. Yeah.
So I think one thing that's kind of very interesting is that, like you said, there was a lot of opportunities and you thought you were going somewhere and then you ended
Yeah.
up going somewhere else and you were always kind of going back and forth. So I think one thing, and probably one of the lessons we can probably derive from that is you kind of have to be persistent if you want to pursue Islamic studies. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment. I've noticed that studying is not difficult. It's not easy, excuse me, it's very difficult. And tests will come in various shapes and sizes. You'll have people who pass away while you study. You'll get very sick when you study. Different things will happen. And I have a friend who's studying in Chicago, and he has a really severe back problem. I was telling him that this is how it's going to be, because you're trying to carry a prophetic weight. And the Prophet was tested in so many different capacities, and you will be tested. And that's why people study. It's so difficult. It's very hard emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually. It's difficult. In the end, it's worth it. And inshallah, in the akhirah, it's worth it. And so part of my test was constantly having my heart broken. And I remember there's one time when I was speaking to one of my teachers, and I was just talking about my family and just sort of the next phase of life. And he's like, "Well, if the door to studying is closed, then yeah, you should start the next phase of your life. If not, then you should still consider studying." And I'm in my early 30s at that point. So I was like, okay, no, I still want to study. But at that point, it was looking very bleak and grim. But there's no reason for it to be so. I was sort of the same age as some of my teachers at school, older than some of my teachers, younger than some others. Definitely the eldest. When I graduated, I was the oldest student to graduate in my school's history. The year after someone graduated was a little older, I think a year older, but I held that record for a year. But it happens.
Wow. No, Jazakallah khair for sharing that. One of the aims that I started the podcast with was that I wanted to have many people come on the podcast and talk about, their paths that they've been on and what they've done in their life and everything, because, um, you know, uh, it's something that it's important, and I think it's something to learn from others, and hopefully it'll inspire us as well too. To hey, everybody has a different path. Everybody kind of does different things, and it's not going to be this straightforward, simple thing. Like if we go through regular school and college, there's kind of a
Yeah.
structured way of doing it. It's not necessarily going to be like that. So if that's going to be the case, then we need to understand that for sure. So alhamdulillah, now inshallah we'll get started with the actual topic for today's podcast, which is now we're reaching the end of Ramadan, sadly, and now we're only just a couple 2 to 3 days away from Eid. Inshallah, we'll see when it falls. um, what do you recommend we do kind of during this unique situation? Now we've almost gone through the entirety of Ramadan, and for pretty much everybody across the world, especially here in America, we've just been at home, and we've had to adjust to what our Ramadan usually is, which is around the community and around the masjid and everything. And now we're about to reach Eid, inshallah. Um, you know, and before we even get into the Eid, what are kind of the recommended sunnahs from, leading up to Eid, the night before Eid, and then we can hopefully get into the discussion of, how can we make the best of Eid with the situation?
Yeah. So the night before Eid, so the first recommendation is to go look for the moon. If you're in a community who follows calculations, you can still look for the moon. I mean, your community's decision to follow calculations was done to make things easier upon you, and you should be appreciative of that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but you should be appreciative of it. But you should, but no one who follows calculations says, "Well, don't go look for the moon now. The moon is, something that's outdated and unnecessary." No. It's still a sunnah. Go look for the moon. Go maintain that tradition of recognizing that even calculations is based upon the moon, and go out inside it. Take your whole family, drive around, go out to an open plain, or climb atop your house safely, please. And then go look for the moon. And that's one sunnah you should keep in mind. The second sunnah that you should keep in mind, the night before Eid, is that is the night of great reward according to hadith. That there's a narration of the Prophet ﷺ that the scholars attribute some weakness to, that whoever revives the night prior to Eid, that Allah Ta'ala will not let his heart die the day that our hearts die. And so we should, and this is known as Ihya'ul Layl, the revival of the nights. And I think I think this in Lata'if al-Ma'arif as well. Um, of Ibn Rajab rahmatullahi alayh, or Ibn Qayyim rahmatullahi alayh. And so we should revive that night. We should make it such that we engage in worship. Don't think, we have this thing called, is it called Chandrat or something? I think there's Indo-Pak tradition that everyone's like celebrating on Divan. That Ramadan, I mean, we don't like welcome, oh, good job, shaitan, come out, welcome. No, we're out. Our celebration is through worship. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر. We're celebrating through worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is how we should be the night before Eid. And we should stand in night in gratitude that, oh Allah, thank you for letting me spend 29, 30 days in your worship and submission, and do not let this end with this night only. And we should reward ourselves with the Eid. The thing I love most about Eid is not meeting people, it's not the shirkhuma, it's not eating, it's not the takbirat. I love the afternoon nap, which is slowly becoming antiquated in my household. Are just too many, but I love the afternoon nap. That afternoon nap only occurs if you had a nice night of worship. If not, then it's just a wasted time. And so I think that people should revive the nights before Eid in whatever capacity they can.
Yeah, I think I definitely think that's something that I think what often happens is, depending on what night your masjid does your khatam, which obviously kind of doesn't apply for this Ramadan, is on the 27th night or the 29th night, which could be the night before. We kind of like, once that final khatam dua is done, I think we all kind of think, okay, the burden's off our back now. Ramadan's over. Now we can focus on doing other things. So.
Well, there's 4 ends to Ramadan. The
Yeah.
first end of Ramadan is if you feel like you found Laylatul Qadr. And I think some of us felt that it came the 21st night this year, and it sort of was, I was like, no, this is not good.
21st night, huh?
Yeah. It was a peaceful night. There was it was a slight rain. I didn't stay awake for the sunrise. My thing is, I don't want to know. I don't want to know about these signs. People are sending me pictures every morning, like, this is the sun, and then someone said the 27th sun. Look at it. It was no rays whatsoever. I think it's a little dangerous to play that game, just because if you feel like you found it, then that's sort of the end of your Ramadan. The second time it ends is when 27th night. Everyone just after that, they go into. I'm surprised people just don't start eating in the day. The third time it ends is like when they reach their khatam and tarawih prayer. For some people it's earlier, for some people it's later. And the last time is the actual end of Ramadan. So there's 4 ends of Ramadan for some reason.
That's interesting. Yeah, but you're right. I think you're definitely right about that. So when it comes to now we're talking about the night of. Now we're hopefully getting chagan in the morning of Eid. What was the sunnah? What did the Prophet ﷺ always do on Eid? And obviously, outside of us being able to go to the prayer, how much of that can we still do in our current situation?
So I mean, just like Jummah, we're not praying Jummah right now, but we still, my kids and I, we still sit for kahf after Dhuhr. That's just the time we decided for kahf. We'll still take a shower. We'll still cleanse our mouth of the suwak. We'll put on nice clothing. I still, like, even my class recordings for my English class and stuff, you'll see I'll wear a turban. That day in particular, I'll try to wear a turban because it's still a day. I don't want to lose the special nature of that day. And we should try not to lose the special nature of any of these days. So we should still wake up. We should still, after Fajr, we should make sure, after we pray Fajr, we should go have a date immediately and eat that date to signify that we're not fasting. And that's a sunnah. We should bathe. And we should, once we bathe, we should put on nice garments and nice clothing. We have every excuse in the world to put on clothing, going to people's houses, just for coming on the podcast to look nice, etc. We do. So just for that reason, do it. Don't feel foolish. Furthermore, we should make sure that we are engaging. The takbirat are recited when a person goes for prayer. So in this particular case, takbirat may not be recited. I mean, you can still recite them, but you're not going to the prayer unless people are praying. Now, if you are, there's 2 opinions out there when it comes to the prayer for Eid. One opinion is that an individual will pray the Eid at home, so long as that they meet the requirement for the Jummah. And that's in the other madhahib, and that's partially in the Hanafi madhab. It's not the main thing in the Hanafi madhab. In the Hanafi madhab, it's not supposed to take place in the house, but whatever. Scholars have given fatwa and given an opinion you can do it. So if you're doing it, then go ahead and do that. As you're walking to the place you're going to pray in your home, if you have enough people, do the takbirat. And, and then have someone lead the prayer and deliver the khutbah. The khutbah comes after the prayer. And whatever other traditions you have. If you make shirkhuma, go ahead. I'm not a fan of it personally. Whatever else you do, if you visit people, you can still virtually visit people. One of the things I like about this Ramadan and this Eid potentially is that I feel like people will be able to pray in congregation more than ever. Normally during what happens in the masajid, they're very empty the day of Eid because people are traveling over to meet one another. But this year, we're not going to be traveling as much to meet people. So now, whatever your schedule, and I recommend everyone, in my fridge, I'm not downstairs, we just have a dry erase board that has the prayer times on it. The prayer times are written directly on there. And so we know this is when the adhan is called and this is when we stand to pray. And so inshallah, we'll maintain those prayer times during the day of Eid as well. And so we can maintain some of those things, inshallah. Make sure you still give the fitr before Eid, online or in person, however you want to do it. And now that you're saving some money, you may have done otherwise, try to give a little extra, it might be a good time to volunteer. Go, what we're doing in our home. That's the next question, right? So maybe how to celebrate.
I was going to ask it to you anyway. You were leading to it, alhamdulillah, so that's fine. Before we even get to that, I was going to say, I think that's kind of a big burning question in the community right now. And we've seen a lot of the fatwa that have been passed, across the board. Alhamdulillah, I don't want to name names, otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. And obviously different madhabs seem to have different opinions on it. Can we make Eid at home? If we're at home, and kind of keeping in mind all the rulings and the normal circumstances that would be the case if we were going to do Eid, at the masjid.
Yeah. In the Maliki madhab, yes. In the Shafi madhab, yes. The Hanbali madhab, I don't remember. I believe usually from the Shafi, it's yes. The Hanbali as well. The Hanafi has two opinions, and then this is based upon a concept called Izn al-Am, general permissibility for people to come pray. It's not restricted, and depending on how far that expands for you, it's yes or no. I would just recommend do what your local community is doing and maintain that. Usually the minimum amount of individuals that you need is the minimum amount you need for Jummah, which for the Hanafi madhab is going to be 4 adult males. And then go ahead and pray. And you pray the prayer with the takbirat. The Jummah khutbah is different than the Eid khutbah. The Eid khutbah is not necessarily something that you have to do this time. I'm just going to word it that way for reasons that keeps myself in jail.
Plausible deniability. Maybe. Okay. No, it's good to know for sure. And then now you kind of hit upon it as well. Since we're all mostly going to be at home, and it seems like different states have different rulings. Like I'm down here in Knoxville, Tennessee, visiting my in-laws. The state here is a little bit more open. They're allowing for slightly larger gatherings, not large enough to warrant like doing the Eid Jamaat like anywhere in the community, and I don't think that's going to be the plan. But if we're at home, obviously most people, their Eid is surrounded of, like you said, doing all the sunnah in the morning, and then going to the masjid, getting, packing together, usually running very late for that Eid. The whole family is behind, and then we're like trying to speed there, and we're ready to go pray, try to catch the prayer in the hallway or outside of the masjid if we can. So maybe those sunnahs will miss. Maybe we can, like you said, maybe we'll just get a little late walking to the room next door or something like that. And then, obviously we're used to seeing all the community and, 3 hugs and awkward hugs and, all of those beautiful things that we're used to having. Now we're not going to have any of that. We're mostly going to be at home. So how can we make the day festive? How can we make it exciting, especially for the kids? One of the things that always comes up in Muslim households is that, when it's the Christmas time or Halloween time or whatever, we're always holding our kids back from that. And, we always tell them, oh, our Eids are big days and everything. So how do we kind of, bring that celebration and excitement that normally, we may not know, that will be kind of a unique this time around?
I think there's elements you can still maintain. This year, we're not going to, normally we meet at my parents' place, and then there's a piñata and all the grandkids break it. And, there's different things that we do, not sunnah, just things that we do amongst ourselves. So you can still maintain some of those. If you normally have a special meal, cook a special meal. If you normally order a special meal, order a special meal. If you normally get a piñata, get your piñata. That doesn't have to change. This year, what we're doing, and this is like, we decided this weeks ago, like the first week of Ramadan, and now it's sort of caught on fire, not because we said it, but people just had the same idea. So we're not necessarily unique. But we're going to have 2 hours of drive-by. Come to our home. We have a table outside. We'll have some nasheed, and, have my wife is making a shirkuma stand, goodie bags and popsicles, and just come by, and then we're just gonna be standing outside. We'll be all dressed up. Anyone can come. We're thinking about even putting little invitations on our neighbors' boxes that, hey, come by, this is our special holiday, and just grab a goodie bag and something to eat, and then go ahead. And that's the 2 hours of just celebrating with us, and no one has to get out of the car, no one has to shake hands. We can make our cars like reverse and go forward 3 times, and then have that awkward, hopefully, that awkwardness, sometimes you go the same shoulder, that'd be a head-on collision. But, aside from that, you can do those types of things. And that's what we're looking forward to doing as well. We have some gifts for the kids that are just in this closet over here right now. And, whatever we can do, I think it's really important. And this is one of the things that, one of the things I don't like about this whole COVID situation, I feel people, and someone called me out on this recently, I feel people are running for fatwa. Like, okay, brother, I don't normally believe in holding the Quran. Can I hold the Quran this time around? Or, normally we don't do this. Can I do this? Children, I feel in my madhab, children shouldn't lead prayer, but my son knows more, so can I let him lead? He's a child. The fatwa given by the ulama is the fatwa. I'm not going to argue with the fatwa. And I feel this provides a really unique opportunity for us to sometimes say, look, it's okay for us to be in a different situation. But it's important for us to recognize that happiness and celebration, I feel, should come within the parameters of deen. Everything is a fatwa is within the deen, but you don't have to say, well, I need a special fatwa. Those people are saying, I don't know the whole Quran. Can I hold the Quran in my hands? Fine, whatever the fatwa is, you can do what you want to do. I'm not hafiz either. But maybe this is a time for you to read those surahs and make it stronger, or maybe this is a time in which you can take advantage of sitting down, and maybe the tarawih will only be a half hour, but between every 4 rak'ah you can sit now and read the translation, and so that the next 4 rak'ah you're going to be able to focus on them. There's things we can do. And so if people sought the fatwa, alhamdulillah, no problem. That's within our deen, that dispensation's there. I'm not calling you out. But sometimes even within the quote-unquote restrictions that are there, it's important to take advantage of what's available. And I think for ulama, it also gives them a chance to look at this and say, we have to be a little more in tune with the feelings of the masses, and not just say, well, this is the deen says, apply it. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because when it comes to Eid itself, it's just one activity. You go, you pray, you listen to a khutbah, you come home. That's it. That's Eid. There's no change of fatwa or anything over here. What you need and what I need to do is basically say, how can I be happy on this day? Is it friends? Okay. If friends are my means to be happy, then I should be happy by reaching out to them. Let's have a Zoom call, for example. Alhamdulillah. Sorry, I was a lot of pollen outside today when I was mowing the lawn. If it's food, the night before, get up and make some food. Every 2 rak'ah, go check the oven, make sure the cookies aren't burning, etc. If it's gifts, go and shop for yourself and for your family. But also take this opportunity and say that, this is not really it's not the same feeling for me. And now take a step back and say, subhanAllah, it's not the same feeling for me just because of one situation. There are people who will never receive the gift on Eid. There are people who are going to pretty much fast on Eid because they don't have any food that day. Yeah, there are many people. It's like that stuff should really begin to make us think that, I feel lonely this Eid. New Muslim who lives in the masjid, whose parents won't speak to him or her anymore. Like, why have they not been a part of our celebrations? We should think COVID has been an opportunity for me to put myself in the shoes of other individuals and now allow them to celebrate. And so use this as an opportunity rather than it being any type of punishment.
No, you were gonna you brought up something that I was gonna bring up as well too, is that hopefully our empathy is growing during this Ramadan of for those of us who are fortunate who might have family who are nearby, or we've been in the same community for a very long time, so we have an Eid ritual, so to speak. Oh, I'm going to have my I go have my Eid prayer, and then I'm going to go to lunch at my parents' house, and then in the afternoon I'm not going to go to, there's 4 neighbors in my neighborhood, and we're going to have our open houses, and then we're all going to go to their open houses and eat there, and then afternoon nap, like you mentioned, we'll have our Eid afternoon nap. Oh, now I got to get ready for my evening festivities. We have this whole schedule down.
Yeah.
And now we're not going to have that for the most part. Like you said, I think you brought up a beautiful point there of, kind of an Eid opportunity where, hey, we can set up food and stuff outside, keep our fair distance, and have people come through. So this still gives us an opportunity to do what I'm going to kind of mention here and kind of is, how do we include the newer members of our community, people who don't live in our community typically, whether it's new converts or converts who've been there for a long time, or just people who, hey, I know this brother and the sister moved to the community here just a few months ago. And imagine you moved to a new community 3 months ago, and then immediately COVID hit. You didn't even get to meet anybody. You didn't go to the masjid to meet people. How do we do a better job of kind of bringing this in? And I'm going to kind of mention something you mentioned in your talk last night about, when you were talking about which scholar were you talking about?
Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani.
Yeah, Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. You said he was the friend. He was, one of his many beautiful traits was that he was very friendly with the poor, and he accompanied the poor.
Yes.
How do we kind of bring that into our Eids? And maybe we may not be able to the same level this Eid, but how do we bring that into our lives, like you mentioned?
I mean, we could even do it this Eid. Put on a mask and go outside to the parks that have people who are poor, and have a basket or a bag ready with a note and give it to them. Maybe include some money in that bag. They might think it's only food, and they open it, they see like, a $5 bill, $10 bill, and go ahead and share that feeling. And there's nothing stopping us. I mean, social distancing and safety, those requirements and those recommendations are not saying live in a hole. If you have, new Muslims in your area, have your masjid send out on their Facebook, post on their Facebook, on their Twitter, on an email, or whatever the means of social media that exists. Have them put something out there that we're having a gathering in the masjid, and just outside, with social distancing present, have them drive up, and then, all they can basically do is just come in, pick up a goodie bag, and write down their name. And then that name of these people who normally don't visit the masjid can be shared with some families who will say, we're going to take on the responsibility now to contact these individuals, to speak with them, set up a call with them, FaceTime, say Eid Mubarak, go by and drop a meal. And if, the Prophet doesn't see, when you move to Medina, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he moves to Medina, he didn't, people talk about, oh, it's so amazing. The Prophet, what he was teaching us what to do, amongst other things, is, look, you're going to live in these, metropolitan communities with a lot of people are going to come there. And now you're going to be one of two people. You're going to be the new guy in town or the new girl in town. You're going to be the person who's always been there. So now you have one of two responsibilities. If you're the person who's always been there, you're the Ansar. You're going to come in and you're going to identify those people. You're going to share from what you have. And if you're the people coming, you're the muhajirun. You're going to come in, you're going to sort of flock towards a central place, which is the masjid, and then let yourself be known that you have a need, and people will come take from you. And I think that's the same example that we take. You don't need, one person doesn't have to go and deal and handle all the affairs of every new person. New person comes in, assign them to a person. And if the masjid doesn't have this program, just, Shafi will say, okay, myself, I have 10 guys in my community. We're just going to go and try to contact people and see who's new. And we'll just take one family, not 2 families, not 10 families, one family. Get that family excited, get them involved. Maybe when you're comfortable enough, now other families begin to connect with them. It creates a web. Just like how, when we went to MMYC and Minna, etc., we were sort of thrust into the faces of people we didn't know. And after a while, we knew them. And then they became family. And that new kid in the room was there. The next year, like, oh man, who's this new kid? I don't know, I'm gonna like him. Why didn't I get my old friend? And then you're like, oh, the kid was pretty cool after 2.5 days. And he becomes a new link. And you sort of spread that love through it. So I definitely think you take advantage of this. Put up a sign, in your masjid. Tell the board members, rotate. If you want to be socially distanced, you take a 2-hour slot, you take a 2-hour slot. We'll give a volunteer 1-hour slot. People will be there. And they'll just be standing out there. Come by, introduce yourselves, take something, and then get that name in the system, and then move on.
These Jazakallah khair. Those are some beautiful ideas, and that's why I was pushing to try to do this particular podcast a couple of days before Eid, because we still have time. Hopefully, people might be considering, maybe taking tomorrow off from work, and even if they're not, hopefully they'll be off on Saturday. You still have a couple of days to kind of inculcate some of these ideas in our communities. So, like Shaykh Sa'ad beautifully mentioned, If you're somebody who's been in the community for a very long time, and hopefully you can probably brainstorm a couple of families who, even if they're not necessarily brand new, they've probably been here for a year or two, and just reach out to them, see how they're doing. And I love the example you also mentioned too of, maybe we go to an area where we know a lot of people tend to congregate, or people are walking around or whatever, where a lot of Muslims may be, where we can do that. So I think those are really good examples that hopefully we can do. Um, one of the other things that has also come up is, there's kind of this feeling that now Ramadan is kind of reaching to an end, and there's a lot of people who might feel down that their Ramadan didn't go quite as they expected. Maybe they have a lot of kids at home. Maybe they weren't as fortunate to work from home. Maybe they had to go work in person. Maybe they were on the front lines working in hospitals, working at grocery stores. They were essential worker. They were doing that type of thing. Maybe their Ramadan didn't go quite as well as they expected. And, usually Eid is, like you kind of mentioned, is like, kind of a celebration of the, accomplishments of everything we've done. What's kind of the motivation for, somebody who might be feeling like this? They said, man, my Ramadan was just a complete, fail or whatever, what's kind of some motivation that, or words of advice you could give to them?
Yeah, and it's good to have that feeling. No one should leave Ramadan thinking that was that was, you can feel it's the best Ramadan, but like that was an absolute success. There's no such thing. The reality is that most of us, if not all of us, have set expectations and goal in Ramadan. We've fallen short. I know some of the goals I had established, I've fallen short in them. The beauty of goals for most people is, like, let's say a person says, I normally read, let's say a person says, I normally read Quran only once every couple of days. I don't even read it every day, or once a week, once a month even. And I made the goal, I'm going to do a khatam this month. And they may have fallen short of the khatam, but now take the amount of Quran that you read and compare it to last year. You probably read more. And then what? Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, while you didn't get the full khatam of Quran in, you were able to still do, whatever, half a khatam. And thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. And if you thank Allah ta'ala, the verse mentions He'll increase you. Maybe your goal this year was to stand in Taraweeh prayer every night. You have never done that before. And you got 20 out of 30 nights. Now think of the last time you did 20 nights of Qiyam at all. Didn't happen, right? I mean, maybe throughout the entire year last year might have happened. Maybe not. Wallahu alam. And thank Allah for those 20 nights. The idea is that any gains that we've made, we should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Anything that He gave us tawfiq to do, even if we did absolutely nothing this Ramadan, except for fast. And even if we didn't even fast, let's say we even fell off of that. And now we're like, what is going on? This stinks. I've just wasted my Ramadan. You should thank Allah for that feeling that you've recognized it. Some people end Ramadan the same way they began Ramadan, with nothing having changed through it, before and after it. They don't even recognize it. The fact that we're feeling it, that's Allah being at-tawwab. He's turning towards us so we can turn back to Him. So we should thank Allah Ta'ala for that feeling. The second thing is build off of it. Don't just say, okay, well, I had the feeling, alhamdulillah. No, build off of it now. Have goals that allow Ramadan to not be something that just, because the Lord of Ramadan is the Lord of every month and every day of the year. And we don't want to restrict that interaction with Allah Ta'ala to only Ramadan. So thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by what? Now making these goals. Before I go to sleep, I'm not going to do 20 rak'ah. It's too much. I'll just do 2 rak'ah. I'm not going to recite the entire Quran. I'll just read 2 surahs, Falaq and Nas. But do it every night. Do it for a month. And then let the barakah and the motivation and the the tide of Ramadan carry you into Shawwal in such a way that you're able to do things now that we've never been able to do before. The other thing is that if you're feeling like, oh man, I didn't get to do much, etc., sometimes a person has to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets these different places throughout these days in which remember Allah ta'ala throughout the year. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to act as landmarks and be sources of motivations and time by which we're able to increase. So now a person says, I totally bombed and I flopped Ramadan. Well, good news. Because you have Shawwal and Dhul Qa'dah, 2 months, 60 days about. And after that, you get 10 days and nights. Not 30. 30 is hard. 10 days and nights that actually are the best days and nights of the year. So now spend your next 2 months preparing for those 10 days and nights. And when they come, show to Allah, like the people of Uhud. Why the people of Uhud? Why the youth want to go out and fight instead of stay back and protect the city, as the Prophet wanted to do? So we miss Badr. So we want to go prove ourselves. So fine, we missed Ramadan. We didn't maximize on it. Prove yourself now during Dhul Hajjah by making sure that those 10 days and nights are like none ever. That none that you've been able to do before, and push yourself in that.
And just for the record, the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah is what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. And then you've kind of already touched upon it a little bit already, but I think it's worth kind of like mentioning again here too is how everything that we may have gained from Ramadan, or maybe what we have not gained from Ramadan. What do you recommend we do? Because, like, for example, Eid, inshallah, like I said, it's going to be Saturday, Sunday. I don't know, maybe Monday is a potential. No,
for some places
they have 3 days of Eid sometimes, so you never know. But what do you recommend? Like, okay, now we've had Eid, alhamdulillah, inshallah, hopefully it was a good Eid and everything. And then what do you recommend? Like, what would be some recommended things we do next week? What would be some recommended like milestones that we need to hit 2 weeks from now, a month from now? If you had a playbook, so to speak, or sheikhs you've spoken to have advised you in the past, could you share that? And how can we do it? Because if we've gained anything from Ramadan, like you said, we don't want to lose it. Hopefully we want to build on it. How do we go about doing that?
So within the Sunnah, we have the idea of fasting 6 days after Eid, which is the 6 days of Shawwal. Some of the scholars, I believe the Maliki Madhab says the immediate 6 days right after the fast at all is going to be makruh. And that's there's reasons for that. But go ahead and start establishing your schedule. Just as we did for Ramadan, we made these. Sometimes people think, oh, this is cheesy. Why am I writing down my goals? Well, the reason why we write things down is so that we have an ability to look at them and see, people have these vision boards, etc. Am I gaining what I plan to do? So, fridge, we have this, to-do list in the household, and we have this grocery list. There's no reason why I can't have our own goal list. Maybe I'll put that up on our fridge that, you see, this is the month of Shawwal. These are my goals. 6 fasts this month. I'm going to give $1 a week every Jummah. Something that's easy. أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. It's consistent, but it's small. Person might say, okay, praying tahajjud every night is going to be hard. But I'm going to pray 2 extra rak'ah before going to sleep. Praying in the masjid is something that was difficult for me. And if the masajid open up and you feel comfortable going there and whatever the ulama give the thumbs up, etc., then establish the goal. I'm going to start going there, and then have someone watch over you. Don't make it just you versus yourself. Have someone who's there, who's going to watch over you. That individual will see, and it'll be almost a buddy system. Last night, I had to give a talk, not the one that you were on, the different talk, in recovering the 27 juz yesterday. That was yesterday. And so we're speaking about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the beginning of 27 juz, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That we have not made jinn nor mankind except to worship. And I was like, this idea of being a jinn, it doesn't, we don't really relate to it. But we're thaqalain. There's jinn and human beings. They're the two ones held to account. They're held accountable for their deeds. Now, between these two, why do you have an opponent? Why do you have someone that you compete against to bring the best out in you? So when an individual has, if they're playing a sport alone, it's not going to be really fun. But you have opponents. Depending on the quality of that opponent, you're going to push yourself even more. You're saying, okay, this month I'm going to try to read 5 khatam of Quran, and then you have a friend who's aiming for 10. You might just try to outdo them. It's constantly ta'awanu 'ala al-birri wat-taqwa. Wa fi dhalika falyatanafas al-mutanafisun. We compete for goodness. We race for goodness, and we compete one another in that goodness, and we encourage one another through it. So the jinn, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, they're mentioned in this verse. Later in 27 juz, Allah Ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Rahman, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. In a Hasan hadith in Tirmidhi, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned, he recited this verse. The narration mentions that he recited the Surah Al-Rahman from the first verse to the last verse, the entire verse, the surah. And the Sahaba remained quiet. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you remain quiet, but your brethren, the jinn, the righteous of the jinn, when I recite this to them, when I would say, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ قَالُوا, what do they say? They said nothing. There's nothing that we deny from your favors. All praises for Allah. And so like immediately it made me think that, subhanAllah, how even in this verse, we always focus on the ins, but we don't see the jinn. And the jinn, just later in that same juz, they with us and they outdid the Sahaba. The Sahaba, what should we say? Said that look at what they said. They immediately, when they had this experience, they said, there's nothing we deny from Allah's favors, and we completely submit, and all praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having an opponent, having a companion, someone there to help push us to give $1 a week, or to check in on us to say, hey, did you make sure you prayed Isha? Hey, you told me before that you struggled with your witr. Did you pray it tonight? You wanted to fast once a week. This is the end of the week. I'm checking today. Did you fast? If not, make sure you fast today. Have someone there that you can check on them and they can check on you. Make it regular and consistent. Pray a small amount regularly. That's extra. Make it consistent. Fast a small amount regularly. Make it consistent. All those things that you and I have done. Seclusion. Give yourself some seclusion every day. Stay away from the family for 10 minutes in a different room and without devices. My God, I hate these devices. Just throw them away. I lost my cell phone 4 days ago. I don't know. You contacted me on my work phone. I actually had to take that out because I was like, I couldn't. I don't know where my phone is. My personal phone. I don't know if you tried to reach me on that. I'm sorry. I lost that, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's getting close. I was like, let me. I was gonna email you next. I was like, I was just gonna go down the pecking order.
So, I was like, whatever. I'll look for it after Ramadan because it's been nice not being contacted by people. Just whatever. I lost it. I didn't mean to lose it. I lost it. It's from Allah. And so, disconnect for a period of time. These are things that we should try to continue after Ramadan.
Inshallah. No, absolutely. I think you kind of touched upon it at the beginning too. Was I think a couple of questions I had sent this topic to a few people just to get their feeling and everything. Is there any like detailed like narrations or hadith of the Prophet ﷺ or the Sahaba or anything of any particular things that they would do on Eid or anything like that, or immediately after Eid or anything like that? Is there anything that is mentioned there that comes to mind that would be worth sharing that we could
there is a narration of the Prophet in the room of Aisha and young girls singing and like duff and stuff like that. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because there's a masjid here. The talk that you came on last night, Masjid Uthman. Yeah. So they're making a whole festival for Eid. It's something like 2 or 3 hour online festival, and there's gonna be like a short 10-minute talk, and there's gonna be like a story hour. I think Rashid Mahdi is going to be. Rashid, like from.
I know Rashid very well.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be reading his book, Tara the Turtle, and then there'll be a couple other storytellers. There'll be a Nasheed. That's the story. There'll be a Nasheed hour where I think they have Nadir Khan coming in. They contacted Talib Al Habib. I think In'am was contacted as well.
Nice.
The Michigan. The Michigan Nasheed artist as well. So. Do those types of things, enjoy it as the sunnah is there. That the Prophet did listen to stories. I don't know if necessarily on Eid per se, that singing, and go ahead, have that. Sit with your family, take out your duff if you have it, and sing around, sing some songs. It might sound cheesy, but just do it. It's okay.
I think Shaykh Sa'ad, you mentioned that there's going to be some, there's going to be some activities at your house. Can we come by your house and hear you sing potentially?
You're more than welcome to come by. When we sing, it's when it gets to my turn. It's usually the time that everyone doesn't really enjoy that much, but yeah, everyone gets their chance. The link for that program, once that link is established, I will give it to you guys, inshallah, for the Masjid Uthman program.
Yeah, no, definitely we can pass it along. And I think it's a good opportunity. We kind of mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast here too, was to mention Masjid Uthman has been doing a nightly program with Shaykh Sa'ad, and then Shaykh Sa'ad has been going through the revivers of our past book, every night. We mentioned it, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jalani yesterday, and he's gone through Imam Ghazali and everything as well. Masjid Uthman's been doing that, so I feel like it's a worthwhile plug. How many are you planning to do that for? How many more nights? 2 more nights? 3 more nights?
So tonight, Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday we're going to do it. Not Saturday night, we're going to do it Saturday right before Maghrib. So I think from 7 to 8 or 7 to 7:45 we'll do it, which is my time. Eastern time would be an hour later or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds good, inshallah. And then I guess we'll kind of end off on this, and hopefully this is not a negative way to end. If not, maybe I'll add additional question, end on a positive note. a lot of people, I got a question from somebody where they said, I mean, we see these, we've heard scholars having these dreams about how, COVID-19, this, and, maybe it's a punishment to, uh, humanity and this type of thing, everything like that. And I remember in the earlier stages when it was only in China and in other places, people thought, oh, look, it's in places where they're doing, bad things to people. So of course that's what it is. But then it ended up spreading to the rest of the world and America too. So then it's like, oh wait, that's including us now. So is this still a punishment? Is not a punishment or anything like that? Have you spoken with any, other ulama about this and everything? And, what's kind of their opinion and take on what's going on right now. And has this ever happened in the past before? This type of situation in Islamic history where a disease like this, something that where kept everybody at home and like it affected like the normal things of Ramadan. And
Yeah, I mean, there's a clip on Ilmfeed, FEED, on YouTube that goes over like 5 times in which the Hajj was shut down, and we have obviously the different the plagues that have afflicted us, and that's Shaykh Sa'ad Quadri has a nice talk on that. So there are these things have happened before. Is it a punishment? Is it a test? One, the standard answer: a punishment and test is all based upon how you respond to. If a person responds by distancing themselves from Allah, it's a punishment. If a person responds by going closer to Allah Ta'ala, it's a test. But the other thing is, so Shafi, to your parents, you are a
son,
and to your wife, you are a
husband,
and to your daughter, you are a
father,
and to your sister, you are a
brother.
yeah. So like you play many roles. One thing can take multiple roles, and it's all you, but you play all these roles. And so the idea is that why restrict it? I look at COVID as being a punishment for me, because there's a lot of things that I did that I should be punished for. And, alhamdulillah, Allah sent it in this world. And I look at COVID as being a test for me, because there might be a higher position that Allah Ta'ala wants me to reach. And through the patience and gratitude in this test, I can reach it. And I look at COVID as being a wake-up call for me, because through it, I begin to recognize, man, I've never been a really big family guy. I like meeting my siblings, etc. But I'm actually noticing that, hey, I want to go visit my parents and my siblings. And I've noticed that COVID is an opportunity for me to appreciate those things which I may have taken for granted before. For example, like going to the masjid to pray, or if there's an opportunity for Umrah that I take advantage of, etc. So it's a lot of these things. It's a reminder for me. So COVID can be all of those things. So it is what you make of it. And so make of it that which will draw us closer to Allah Ta'ala.
No, that's a very good way of putting it. Jazakallah khair. Like you said, isn't it? It's always mentioned that whenever a problem afflicts us, if it's something that brings us closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, then it can be a blessing for us. And if it's something that takes us further away from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, then that's something that is bad for us. So, if inshallah this can be a net positive for us, like you said, where we take our family more seriously, we take going to the masjid more seriously. Maybe like myself, we realized how bad our hifz is and how much we struggled in trying to do tarawih at home during this Ramadan. Maybe Quran will become something that becomes important to us, and we'll make it a priority again. If these can be net positives for us, inshallah, hopefully that can be the case. Kind of to wrap things up, then, inshallah, kind of looking at everything and seeing how everything has gone and everything like that. How do you kind of view, like, getting a little more macro view here for a moment? The only other thing me and friends were discussing was what does this kind of compare to in terms of like a tragedy or like a huge situation where like it just changed the world, it's going to shift the world, it looks like, in the short term and in the long term. And the closest thing we could think of was like 9/11. For those of us who are old enough who remember it. I was in high school, I remember I heard a principal came on the PA and said 2 planes hit the World Trade Center, and like I don't know how PAs are now, but like you could hear it kind of mumbly, scratchily, and you couldn't quite hear it. You heard planes crash, towers and stuff, and we were kind of confused. And back in 2001, phones weren't necessarily available, iPads weren't necessarily available, so we were really confused. We're like, well, what's going on? And then we obviously saw what happened in the Muslim community and what happened, obviously, across the world. how do you kind of, in the, kind of looking at how things are right now, how the Muslim community has responded, which inshallah, hopefully, I think it was pretty well. Look how quickly a lot of masjids, communities pivoted and everything. How do you kind of see this changing how things are going to happen in the short term and most likely in the long term?
It's hard to compare to anything. 9/11 has its place, but 9/11, though there was some fear about going outside and going to larger buildings, we pretty much went back outside right away. I mean, this is a different type of test in that regard, but maybe in its mass, the gravity and its reach, it might be comparable to 9/11. Um, I was speaking to some physicians, like this might not go away for a few years, a vaccine being developed and then subsequently being tested and then being improved upon. And we're talking about a change in lifestyle for a period of time. A lot of people are talking about the gel coming now and all of these things that, this is the beginning of the end. And all these conspiracy theories are going around. There's so much happening right now. And it's just hysteria for so many people on so many different levels. And so my thoughts on this is that I can't really compare to anything that's happened in my lifetime, although 9/11 is sort of close to it. What I am really happy with is that, Allah is still our Lord. And I have to just recognize that whatever He puts in our lives, that it's for our goodness. And so have the masajid responded? Well, yes, they did, and I think this is a chance for reflection for them as well to take advantage of their social media and reach out to people that they may not have reached out to before. I think individuals are appreciating family now more than ever. There's a lot that's come along with it. I don't know if the world will ever be the same after this, but I don't know if that's a bad thing, because we became so complacent and so accustomed to luxury and convenience type of real difficulty. Now, I was thinking about this recently, and I was speaking to someone about this, that, I'm sure that some of the people who I live with in Zambia, although this has hit Zambia as well, they can care less about COVID because they don't know where food's coming tomorrow. And they're the kids who, if you go down Cairo Road in the middle of the night, who are outside running between cars asking for money, they can care less about COVID. They couldn't care less about COVID because for them, like meals and lack of parents, that's dominating them. And so at the very least, it's not a first world problem because it's hitting everyone. It's made me sort of realize how lucky and how ungrateful I can be. How lucky I am, how ungrateful I could be that it took something like this to make me recognize that others are going through things on a daily basis. And I'm hoping that we come out of this at least caring for others more. I don't know if that's what will happen. I don't know. The conspiracy theories say otherwise, but but Wallahu alam. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of what my thoughts are on it.
No, and I think the real answer to that is it's incomplete. It's kind of we're going to see what happens.
Yes,
for sure. But people had asked me they requested the question be asked, so I wanted to pass along. I knew there may not be I don't think anybody has the solid answer for anything like that. You did remind me of those older MMYC days, young Sa'ad Quadri speaking about the Day of Judgment and signs of the last day and everything like that. So maybe those types of talks are going to make a comeback now. I don't know.
I've mellowed out quite a bit. I leave the fire and brimstone for a lot of other people now. So we'll leave that. Well, Dajjal, I've always felt Dajjal is going to be in my life or my children's life. So I'm not really worried about that. There's a reason why my kids are black belt and when we work out on a daily basis, because I feel that's going to eventually come. Okay. But having said that, what's the difference? If COVID didn't come, the gel is still going to come out anyways. So that doesn't make a difference.
That didn't change anything. Do your daughters also do black belt and stuff like that as well too?
We put them in, but then they incline more towards gymnastics. So we thought we'd let them do their gymnastics for now to gain some, control of their body, and then we're going to put them into martial arts soon. And so they're younger. Yeah. But alhamdulillah. Yeah. And then the eldest, he's now wielding a bow staff. He's always practicing in the backyard with his bow staff, and they're always doing something because there'll be no more weaponry then, at least modern weaponry anymore. So those anyway, who you should speak about this? You get Maulana Wahaj. His outlook at the end of times and Ya'juj and Ma'juj, that's a very unique and very substantiated outlook. The proofs that he brings forth and everything.
Yeah.
That's what you got. Yeah.
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah, he was my alhamdulillah. I had Amal Hajj as my first guest on the podcast. So
Oh, okay.
in due time, he's got a heavy load, mashallah, right now with Taraweeh and Tafsir and afternoon talks.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna give him a well-earned break, and then hopefully after. So this may be a good topic. I'll mention that you gave the recommendation of the topic,
Yeah,
and
I do so.
we'll see. We'll see what he says about that, inshallah. So that'll be good. So, Jazakallah khair for coming on the podcast. I think we've really, touched upon a lot of these things, and I think, well, I think a lot of people, a lot of communities, they found their stride during this Ramadan. I hope, they were able to kind of make lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. Um, you know, I got a comment here. Bring him back. Tharawi ends this week, so I think
Yeah,
maybe
there's two topics. That, or you can have him speak about Mufti Palanpuri. Mufti Palanpuri's
yeah.
passing, rahmatullah alayh, has been really hard on him. It's been really heavy on him. He
Okay.
was very close to him, although he met him on a few occasions, but he just benefited a lot from his books. And so I think yeah, that's something. Maybe chain of narrations can have a program where you have multiple scholars come on for something like this, like a live program, and each takes one. Like, you get Mufti Abdul Rahman bin Yusuf to speak about Mal Yusuf Mutala, have
Yeah.
someone
Hmm.
else speak about Mufti Palanpuri, have someone speak about Allama Khalid Mahmoud, maybe Sheikh Amin, and it'd be a nice program. Maybe it could be an Eid program, like, because I've been telling the ulama, you need to have programs telling us who passed away recently. Because what
Yeah.
I do is I go to Ilmgate when someone passes away, and I go check out the sort of like the reading on that person, because they usually post something shortly thereafter. And I think it'd be nice if some of the younger ulama speak about some of the giants that exist today. And these could be two programs. Manu
Okay.
Wahaj can speak about Qari Ilyas, and Sheikh Usher can speak about Mufti Rabbani Sahib, and you can get like Manu Musa Shukapang to speak about Sheikh Amin, or Manu Bak to speak about Sheikh Amin.
Yeah.
And you can have people, you can have, I don't know, Sheikh Al-Wari speak about Sheikh Hussein. Like these
Yeah.
people who are becoming our elders. Someone can speak about Sheikh Aslam Sab, that exists in our country. So then maybe we don't have to wait till they pass away to say, oh, who did we have? We can say they're here right now. We have them. And then you can continue the chain of narration and strengthen it by us, appreciating them.
There's a tie-in that I couldn't have even wrote down on a piece of paper. So I didn't do that. No, I think that's a wonderful idea, and that was something I was thinking about potentially doing after Ramadan too. Was that there's subhanallah, all these ulama who have passed away, and what I've actually find a lot is the general community doesn't know who these people are until they're gone, because
Yeah.
that's when typically, oh, there's a big deal. Oh, I don't know who Mufti Bam. Oh, maybe I saw a flyer of him when he was coming to visit the community a few years ago, but I didn't really know who he was or anything like that. So I think that would be worthwhile. I know one reservation people might have though is speaking about somebody while they're still here might give them a lot of consternation and might feel uncomfortable about it, because they're like, hey, I don't, they may not feel comfortable about doing that. So maybe I'll
That's
have
fine. It could be about those who passed away. I have no problem with that. Sheikh Hamza Wal Makbul or Sheikh Rami can speak about Murabat al Hajj, who passed away. There's a lot of
yeah.
people who we need to cover.
I'll work. Maybe we can come up with the maybe we can come up with the list. And like you said, if you think it's something that we can, if you want to do it, either or not. The good thing about this, I'm recording all these, so they will be posted later. So even if people aren't catching it like the moment it happens, that's okay. We can always post it, and people can benefit from it later.
Yeah, reach out to Atar, Atar Jatai from the East
Yes, I
Coast,
do.
Mecca Books. Reach out to him. They did a project recently where they're doing publications about these people who passed away recently. You can maybe couple with him. He could be a guest for you in the future as well, inshallah.
Yeah, absolutely. No time in. No. Well, it's funny because like you mentioned, like, what are the kind of the benefits? One of the things I was trying to do with the first podcast is I wanted to be in person, one-on-one, and I was only going to do it on audio. Now, obviously with COVID-19, that kind of threw it out the window. So I was like, okay, I have to pivot somehow. I have to go to video. So this is kind of the benefit of it, is now obviously now I don't have to physically be in the same place as somebody or wait for someone to visit, or I go visit that person. Now I can kind of reach out to everybody in a different way, the ulama and everything. And it definitely opens up the opportunity to do more, inshallah, which
Inshallah.
which will be good, and that's definitely my hope. So, Jazakallah khair once again, Sheikh Saad, for
No problem.
last few moments of Ramadan. If you don't mind, if you could just make a short dua, inshallah, to close us out, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad barik wasallam. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك. يا مؤلف القلوب ألف بيننا وبين قلوبنا. Ya Allah, we thank you, Ya Allah, for establishing yet another means by which we're able to gain your mercy and to gain your pleasure by gathering to remember you, Ya Allah, and the people of you who remember you and the events through which we can remember you, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, we ask that you please remove all hardships from the Ummah and from the entire world, Ya Allah. Our neighbors and those whom we know who are non-Muslim, Ya Allah, grant them Islam. Those who we know are Muslim, Ya Allah, grant them Iman, Ihsan. Those who are going through any difficulty, be it financial, be it physical, be it psychological, be it emotional, be it spiritual, be it financial, be it professional, whatever difficulty they're going through, Ya Allah, oh Allah, be it familial, whatever difficulty, Ya Allah, remove it from them completely and put barakah in this new stages that they take and steps they take, Ya Allah, to fix whatever difficulty they're going through, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, we thank you, Ya Allah, for this difficulty and hardship that we're in, Ya Allah, for verily everything in this world is a mercy from you, Ya Allah, and we ask you, Ya Allah, to allow us to see the good within it, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, at the same time, we ask you to show your strength and power by removing this COVID from the world, Ya Allah, and allowing us to return back to some semblance of normalcy. Whatever benefits we gain in this time, Ya Allah, let us not lose out on it, Ya Allah. Allah, forgive us for falling short this Ramadan, and let us take forth from this Ramadan, Ya Allah, a new sense of responsibility to take advantage of every moment of our lives, Ya Allah. Allah, these giants and these greats who have passed away recently, Ya Allah, we ask that you please, Ya Allah, accept them and bless them and elevate them, Ya Allah, and make them amongst your loved ones, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, whatever we should have asked and we forgot to ask, forgive us and accept it from it, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, we ask, Ya Allah, whatever the Prophet sought from you to bless us with it, Ya Allah. We ask that you bless our elders and our parents and our scholars and our teachers and our mentors and anyone who is serving the deen and serving the world today. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala khayri khalqihi Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الحمد لله.
And Jazakallah khair once again to Shaykh Sa'ad. I'll definitely see if we can try to put something together, like you said, where we can go through some of the ulama who have passed away recently and getting people to come speak on it. Especially, like you said, most recently with Mufti Palanpuri, there's, a lot of people who have probably met him before and it's still very fresh. So speaking about these things sometimes can be very therapeutic, and it's a means for people like me who may not know a lot about him and the community who may not know a lot about him to, inshallah, learn from him, gain benefit from him, and hopefully, like you said, learn some lessons like what we were doing in the nightly talks, and hopefully we can take some benefit into our lives and do it that way, inshallah.
Absolutely.
All right, so jazakallah khair, and we'll move in here, and hopefully
see you in class soon.
Yeah, hopefully our classes will start again soon, and go from there, inshallah. It'll be good.
Inshallah.
All right,
Okay, take care. Bye. Take care. Bye.